All right, people, what is going on? Welcome back. Welcome back. We have another one from Gothics, an actual reading. This one, I was meaning to do this one for a while. This one is called Deceit, a TLDR visual of color, communism, and common sense. Now, I knew that I saw this book somewhere, and I actually did some research, and it was actually a person that went by who is Manning Johnson. He was a political leader. And I was like, yo, this name sounds so familiar. And I did some research, and I was like, yeah, I came across him. I forget who was talking about him. Damn, who was talking about Johnson? It's not coming to me now, but it's gonna come to me after I'm done with the video. But Manning Johnson was actually someone who was in the Communist Party and an African American leader, and the party's candidate for the United States representative from New York's 22nd congressional district during a special election in 1935. He later left the party and became a government informant and witness. So this was someone who was actually in the Communist Party and who actually got out. So we're gonna have actual inside knowledge. And this was also one of the books that I think you guys recommended me to actually pick up. I mean, along with everything else Thomas Sowell. So we're gonna actually do this reading from Gothic. Well, we're gonna listen to this reading from Gothics. I mean, of course, I'm gonna get the book myself, but I'm just gonna, kind of get a little insight on, exactly what's going on here. But let's see. Okay, yeah, this one is kind of long, so guys, you might want to scrap in. Also, subscribe to Gothics. It's actually pretty cool because Gothics actually subscribed to my page, which is crazy because I mean, a small channel like mine, I only have like 1,000 subscribers, and and I'm getting attention from these like major like people that are above me. And it's like, wow, man. But I mean, I guess it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not about the numbers. It's actually about the content that you're putting out. So that's awesome, man. I mean, wow. Wow, man. Like, that's just crazy. When I saw that fucking Gothics subscribe to me, I was like, what? Okay, anyways. Hi, Gothics. Anyways, all right, let's get into this. Deceit, a TLDR visual of color, communism, and common sense. Let's go. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, Gothics. Published in 1958.
Preface. I hope people will read Manning Johnson's pamphlet carefully. If you do, you will understand how the communists have used and are using certain American Negroes to the detriment of all Americans, white or black. Page 7. I was lured into the Red Movement by the way of the American Negro Labor Congress, one of the many front organizations set up by the communists to trap the naive, unwary, unsuspecting, and idealistic Negro. Page 18. Stirring up race and class conflict is the basis of all discussions of the Communist Party's work in the South. Page 13. A number of Negro ministers are all for the communists. Some are prominent and influential, others are run-of-the-mill. They in common believe that beating the racial drum is a shortcut to prominence, money, and the realization of personal ambitions.
The question is not whether people are discriminated against. The question is, how effective is that discrimination, and to what extent does it explain income differences? Because many of the groups that are above the average income...
Sorry if you guys can hear the sirens in the background.
Are groups that have demonstrably been discriminated against in various ways. The Jews be classic. The Japanese also. And the Japanese make almost 1/3 higher income than the average American. So the question is not whether there's been this interracial friction and so on. That's existed everywhere and down through history. The question is, how much can you explain the income differences that way? If there is evidence that you have, let us see that evidence. What I think is really tragic is that assertions have been made not only without evidence being offered, but without anyone even asking for evidence. They say there's one woman in the Senate, therefore, or they say that women make X% of the income of men, without bothering to find out what percentage of those women are working part-time, what percentage of them are re-entering the labor force after 20 years of having children, etc.
Exactly.
Rather than saying, let us compare now women who chose to stay in the labor force.
Because some people just work longer hours.
On into their 30s, let's say.
Some people just do more.
And see how do they compare.
So of course the leaders are going to
great
be
differences
different.
tend to disappear. In some cases, the women make more.
Page 29. The communists, through propaganda, have sold a number of intellectuals the idea that the Negro section is as ghetto, that the white Americans created it, set its geographical boundaries, that it is the product of race and hate and the inhumanity of white Americans. Therefore, it is a struggle of a Negro against white oppressors for emancipation. Naturally, those holding such views have no community pride, no interest in doing anything to improve its services. In this way, they paralyze the Negro initiative and resourcefulness, casting the race in the mold of one that is incapable of producing anything for the advancement of society.
Alright, look, this shit is
this
real.
line deliberately spread by the communists leads to the worst kind of mischief. It strengthens and creates racial prejudice and lays the basis for sharp racial conflicts. Shrinking social responsibility and blaming others may be the easy way, but it is only a shortcut to communist slavery.
Bro, this was written in 1958?
The red propagandists distort the facts concerning racial differences for ulterior motives. The incitement of racial warfare places all ills of the Negroes at the doors of white leaders in America. Capitalism and imperialism are made symbols of oppressive white rule.
What the fuck?
To one familiar with the Reds' tricks, it's obvious that placing the blame of all Negro ills at the doors of white leaders in America is to remove all responsibility from the Negro.
Right.
This tends to make the Negro blame others for
Yo,
his
what
failures,
the fuck?
ignore the countless opportunities around him, or look for easy and quick solutions as a substitute for
alright, this shit is getting fucking
realities
scary.
of a competitive struggle to get ahead. The result is a persecution complex.
What?
A warped belief that the white man's prejudice, the white man's system, and the white man's government is responsible for everything.
After the 60s, Black America turned around and began we put our fate in the hands of white America.
Yeah.
We became dependent.
Wasn't that like the start of the welfare system?
White America. We said we have to have this and we have to have that and we have to have affirmative action. We have to have this kind of a program and so forth and so on. All these demands that we made, and which then, of course, come out of a psychology of dependence, where I can't get ahead unless white America gives me all these things, and white America bends over backwards and uses affirmative action to get me in here and get me in there and so forth. I can't do it on my own. I can't be self-sufficient. I can't take care of myself.
Such a belief is the way the Reds planned on it, for the next logical step is hate that can be used by the Reds to accomplish their end. The fact that the Reds have never contributed anything tangible to the progress of the Negro is overlooked, though the Reds have collected millions of dollars as a result of race incitement. Like the Communist Party, the NAACP has collected millions of dollars through the exploitation of race issues.
Race hustlers.
The bigger the race issue, the bigger the appeal, and the bigger the contributions. Yet one cannot find any report of any of this money being spent on factories and ships to provide jobs, land and home construction, specialized training for talented youth, or combating crime and juvenile delinquency. Page 35. They are the ones who devise the methods and techniques used by their puppets to destroy the reputation and influence of those who stand in the way of the Negro liberation juggernaut. The Reds call those persons Uncle Toms. In their usual, diabolically clever way, the Reds took the name of a fine, sincere, and beloved character made famous in the greatest indictment of slavery and transformed him into a dirty, low, sneaky, and treacherous coward.
Bro, this makes so much sense. Matter of fact, I'm actually reading Uncle Tom's Cabin.
A symbol
it's
of
crazy.
Social, economic, and political leprosy. No man dares stand up and proclaim the convictions counter to the Red agitation without running the certain risk of being pilloried. The Reds, their fellow travelers, leaders of the NAACP, and other race agitators have created an ideal climate for such persecution. Page 37. The top white communist leaders know that racial as well as other differences between people have existed over a long span of years and will continue to exist even after centuries of re-education under communist rule. They also know that these differences can be used to play race against race, nationality against nationality, and class against class to advance the cause of communism.
As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people
I have to get
the
the
weakest and
bro, there's
most
so much I have to
vulnerable
fucking
point in
learn,
our
bro.
social fabric.
I feel like such a
By
fucking
constantly
idiot.
probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated
All
that
these years I've been
eventually
lied
the
to,
cloth
man.
could be
But
torn
let me
apart,
finish this.
and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat.
Posing as a friend of the Negro under the guise of a campaign for Negro rights, set race against race in the cold-blooded struggle for power. Page 52. Labeling opponents is a specialty of the Reds. Smear is a cardinal technique. Any label found in the red stockpile, you may be sure, is carefully made and selected to draw the maximum hate to the person or persons, the group or the organization to which it is attached. The use of such labels has a tendency to divide America.
Exactly, like these fucking
Page
buzzwords.
53. The media
Bro,
of
what?
public information is far from free of communists and fellow travelers who operate under the guise of liberalism.
Yes.
They are ready, at all times, to do an effective smear job.
Bro, what? Are you serious? I didn't see Justice League. Okay.
Now, speaking of what the media says, you have stopped giving interviews for the last couple of years.
Yes, I should have stopped many years before that, actually.
Why do you say that?
I see no correlation between what I say and what the media reports. One of the most hideous things that I've seen reported was on the CBS Morning News, where they said or suggested that I was a believer in the theory of genetic inferiority of blacks. Now, I have been arguing against that theory for more than 10 years, and I don't know how many books, how many articles, and how many lectures.
Among the red tools may be found editorial writers, columnists, news commentators, and analysts in the press, radio, and television. They go overboard and give top news coverage to racial incidents fomented by the leftists, and those incidents that are interpreted so as to show biased attitudes of whites against Negroes. This is a propaganda hoax aimed not at helping the Negro, but at casting America in a bad
Right, just
light
like they did with
in
George
order
Floyd
to destroy its prestige
and
and
Breonna
influence
Taylor.
abroad. In the meantime, the Negro is a sacrificial lamb, the innocent victim of widespread racial hate which leftists are creating. The energizing of race hate is an asset to the Reds' cause. The more the merrier, so as long as it erupts in cross-burnings, threats, loss of jobs, refusal of loans, boycotts, bombings, fistfights, beatings, and shootings. Page 54. Many white northern politicians objectively aid the rapidly deteriorating racial situation through the exploitation of leftist propaganda in order to garner Negro votes.
Some more white liberals came along with the 13th, 14th, and 5th Amendments, which were supposed to solve the race problem. The problem is still here. 9 years ago, 9 more white liberals, so-called, came up with what they call a Supreme Court desegregation decision, and the problem is still here. And then another white man named Kennedy came along running for president and told Negroes what all he was going to do for them if they voted for him, and they voted for him 80%. He's been in office now for 3 years, and the problem is still here. So we are within our rights and with justice, with justification, when we express doubt concerning the ability of the white man to solve our problem, and also when we express doubt concerning his integrity, concerning his sincerity.
They care not a tinker's damn about a southern Negro, and simply flatter the northern Negro, who they consider a gullible fool. Getting elected and re-elected is their only concern. Page 62. Nearly after a century removed from slavery, they are unwilling and incapable of throwing off their slave psychology. Red and political charlatans of all shades, aware of this fact, find the Negro intellectual easy prey.
While race has been an important detriment to blacks in general historically, I doubt whether it is an important or as important detriment today. I think for all intents and purposes in the United States that blacks do have their constitutional guarantees, and the problems that blacks face today are not really race. That is, the civil rights struggle is over and won in the United States, which doesn't mean that that all the problems have come to an end, but what it does mean is that they're not civil rights problems. And I'm not denying the existence of discrimination, but what I hold and what my colleague Tom Sowell holds is that discrimination just cannot explain all of what we see. It has nowhere the explanatory power that it used to have.
They know that to hold a comparable job, they must be just as good, and in most instances, better. Though a number of Negro intellectuals try to convince them that the cry for discrimination is a good substitute. Page 58, the Negro businessman has always been a chief target of the Reds. They despise him because of his conservatism. They label him a tool of white imperialists and an enemy of the Negro masses. Such labels are reserved for those the Reds plan to liquidate. And since the Negro businessman is an inspiration and an example to other Negroes, he is therefore an object of derision by the communists. Page 61, betrayal of the Negro people may come through communist corruption of the Negro intellectual. This is not so difficult since the communists, the white liberals, and the white progressives do the thinking for them.
And as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Page 56. Any real investigation of communism or pro-communism among Negroes is headed off, defeated, or driven into a blind alley. Color and race becomes a sanctuary. On the one hand, patriotic and honest politicians and officials do not dare invade it critically without dire consequences to their personal reputations. And on the other hand, this same sanctuary becomes the playground not only for the Reds, but also for the hypocrites, the demagogues, the bigots, the self-seekers, the opportunists, the conniving politicians, and other dregs of human society. Too few Americans in our day have the courage of their convictions. Too few will fly in the face of leftist opposition. Too few will stand up for truth in the face of an ominous and destructive storm of Me Tooisms. Page 64. Under the guise of struggling for Negro rights, they have created all the explosive material for racial violence, making impossible demands, resisting sane and just decisions, opposing compromise and adjustment, and demanding that everything must be done forthwith or not at all. They have no love for their own people, and they have no love for America.
Y'all ever heard something that was so real that it just seemed fake? Bro, what? Hold on, man. Let me see. Let me make sure that book was actually written in 1958. Hold on. When was that book written? Hold on, bro. There's no, bro. Yeah, published in 1958. What? What? Oh my God. That seemed like a book that was written just recently. Bro, I'm getting this book. Wow. I mean, because it makes so much sense that these communists would actually use Negroes to actually further their plans. Because if you look at everything in disguise everything as liberalism, because if you look at what's going on now in America, everything that these leftists are doing, that these liberals are doing, it's all leading to communism. What? Like, oh shit! This is scary. This is scary, man. Oh god, I feel so gross. Like, oh. Gothic's great job, man. That was a great reading. That was great visuals. Guys, pick up that book, man. I'm definitely going to get it. Because I always sat back, even when I was a kid, I always sat back and I wondered why things are, the way they are. Why a lot of people in the black community are, who are successful and who are prominent and who really made a name for themselves, who are like business owners, like they're always considered like the uppity blacks, and like other blacks would always tear them down, like always grab onto them, like just like a crabs in a bucket, that analogy. I always wondered that. I always wondered why did they see it that way, and I always wondered why some people, because even when I was growing up, because as you know, when I was growing up, I was, of course, a Democrat, and it was like actually a couple of years ago when I first heard of Tim Scott, and my family would always consider Tim Scott as an Uncle Tom, a coon. And of course, me being the gullible kid that I was, I always used to just follow that narrative until I actually sat down and I listened to Tim Scott a couple of years ago. And I was like, wow, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. But I always wondered, why was he a coon? Why was he an Uncle Tom? Where did that name came from? And of course, in the black community, it's derived that Uncle Tom was a house Negro and buck dancing for master and everything. And it wasn't until recently that I found out that all that shit was false, bro. Even in that book, how the communists have taken prominent characters, from way back in times of slavery, and they twisted and molded it into a propaganda machine to try to keep blacks down so blacks can depend on the government, bro. What? That's crazy. That's simply crazy. I mean, I think that's also why there's that phrase that Democrats never let a tragedy go to waste or something like that. Because just like everything that happened with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, like all these like racial shootings and stuff, like all these like racial injustices against black and brown people, I noticed that they always word it like so crafty in such a way that they only compare it to, they only say that, a white person does something to a black guy. It's always been like that. Like, bro, the media they're in the back pocket of the communists, bro. Because I think there was actually a recent incident where there was an attack on the Capitol, and I think it was some kind of black nationalists or something, and like the media wasn't reporting on that. I think I saw that from who did I saw that from? I saw that on my feed from YouTube. What was that guy's name? The channel named Black Conservative Perspective. Jeez, try saying that fast. Yeah, I saw that. I was actually gonna watch that before I saw that story because, well, I mean, I was listening to that a little bit before I started this video, and oh damn, what's that guy's name? Greg? Yeah, I just found his channel, so I believe his name is Greg. Sorry if I got that wrong. I'll probably put it up here if I got it wrong, but yeah, even with that story, like they never labeled it as, a black person did such and such. Like they just said what it was a person or something. I don't know. I still have to look into that. I can't speak too much on it, but I always noticed that, man. Even around the time of Trayvon Martin and everything, bro. The media, it's crazy how the media is just inciting all these like racial incidents and try to, stir up such racial division but yet they voted for Biden to try to to try to heal all that shit. They're just working against themselves. I don't understand why. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But I mean, I guess it's the fact that they believe that, look at, they're just pinning everything on white people, so white people can kind of save the black, bro. I mean, bro, wow. And that whole thing with the welfare state, I mean, that's when it really just kind of fell off, man. How when they established all that bullshit, like food stamps, CBTs, Section 8 housing, all that, and out of marriage births that just skyrocketed and just killed the community. All these things destroyed the black community. And it's crazy. All this shit was basically implemented by Democrats, but yet Democrats want to come in and try to save blacks from the shit that they created. Man, wow, bro. Wow. I'm definitely gonna pick out that book, because it seemed like that book could have been written yesterday. Holy crap. That's incredible, man. That's incredible. Because if you actually look, because communism, again, just like in that reading, liberalism is just a facade of communism. That's all. They just like drip communism in. Well, they have communism, yet they just put a blanket over it, and they just call it liberalism. But if you actually look at it, all these policies, all these things that are happening in government right now, with the fucking the vaccine passports, bro. All that shit is leading to communism. All of it. How you have to be restricted to some things. How you can only go certain places if you had like actual paperwork. It's the whole analogy of putting a toad in a pot of water and turning it up very slowly. That's all. And people are they're voting their rights away. They're just giving the government more power, and it's so crazy. It is so crazy that they would give their power, will fork over their rights to just government control. Guys, pick up that book. I know I'm going to. That shit was scary. Great job, Gothics. Great job. Wow. What more can you say, man? What more can you say? And of course, the black leaders, they're in the pockets of the communists too. They're just doing their work for them. Saying that how fucking, because if you look at pretty much every NAACP leader, like, they all vote one way, bro. They all vote Democrat. And again, that liberalism, man, is just the guise for communism. That's all. They're just leading their sheeps to slaughter. That's all these leaders are doing. But I'm glad I got off the ride. I'm glad I got off that treadmill. I'm running out that slaughter factory, bro. I'm chucking my way out. Wow. Guys, if you guys enjoyed this, you already know what to do. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Check out Gothics, man. That kid is doing God's work. I swear to God. Also, go to firstword.com and get yourself some sweet merch like this. Use discount code SOHIMANUSA to get 10% off on every single order. Bruh. Wow. Take care. Bye-bye.